Hello, and welcome to my final presentation for assessment in special education. In this presentation, I will discuss 4 topics that relate to special education. First, I will define and discuss least restrictive environment and the models of delivery for special education. Second, I will discuss the assessment process and why we refer to it as a circular. Third, I will talk about how important family participation is in the IEP process. I will also explore 5 strategies that teachers, professionals, can do to help encourage family participation. Then finally, I will talk about 3 types of derived scores and how they are related. Let's get started. When I say least restrictive environment, I'm referring to an educational setting that best fits a student's needs and enables them to learn along with non-disabled peers. The thing to remember about LRE is that it will look different for each child. There is not one LRE that's the same. For example, one student might receive 3 hours of inclusion a day, and another child may receive 3 hours of inclusion a week. In each scenario, this is considered LRE. An LRE is determined by an IEP team and what is best for the student and their needs. LRE was enacted under the Individuals with Disability Act, IDEA, in 1975. The purpose of the LRE was to ensure that every child with a disability had equal opportunities to learn and to be exposed to the same education as non-disabled peers. Here is a breakdown of how an LRE would look in different scenarios. This is called the continuum of services, and the school system must offer these services for free under the IDEA Act. After the LRE is determined, the IEP team must come up with a model of delivery. This means that the IEP team needs to state and outline how services will be delivered, where they will take place, who will provide them, and how often. This brings me to my second topic of my presentation, the assessment process. This process helps to identify disabilities, strengthen weaknesses, and as well as determining services and goals needed for a student. This process can be broken down into 2 parts, but also is on a continuum, commonly referred to as the assessment cycle. The cycle is in constant motion of planning, collecting data, analyzing, interpreting, and applying. The first part is all about collecting data, analyzing, interpreting, and developing the IEP. There are some guidelines that IDEA has put into place to make sure that this is a timely process. The first one is after a parent, a teacher identifies or refers or asks for testing, the school system has 60 days to complete that testing. And then after that, it has 30 calendar days to determine eligibility. So you have an eligibility meeting and you go forth. And after those 30 calendar days, you get into planning the IEP and developing the IEP. And usually you do that in the IEP meeting when they discuss the testing scores. Another requirement that IDEA has for an IEP is that they need to be retested every 3 years to determine eligibility for the disability. The first 4 main phases in the IEP process is identification, and that could be either a parent identification and referral. That could be a teacher that has identified a student through observation, or we do RTI, response to intervention, to identify some students, or a referral from the parents. Then evaluation. So an evaluation is them doing all the testing that they need to do to figure out if there is a disability present. And then eligibility determination is you have a meeting and they look at the data and they determine if there is a discrepancy between their ability and where they're performing. And after they have determined eligibility, they will start writing the IEP. After the team has written the IEP, and they will implement it, and they will give it to teachers, and they will start services. This can be push in, push out services, is whatever the child needs. The progress monitoring, at that point, they will start the progress monitoring. They will take data occasionally and start putting together like a timeline of progress. The review and adjustment, again, that's the 1 year review, that every year you have it. And that's just to see how they're doing on their progress goals, academic goals, and behavior goals. And if there needs to be any adjustment, they need to add anything, take anything away. And the reevaluation, to bring it full circle, is that they retest again every 3 years. So they go and they test to see if you're still eligible for services, to see if you still have certain disabilities, and round it goes. For a student with disabilities to be successful, it takes the collaboration of both educators and parents. Educators can encourage participation with the IEP process and their child's education by creating an open and ongoing line of communication. This is best done early in the year when you first start off. Emails, updates, good updates, not always bad updates, and this creates familiarity with the teacher and the IEP team. Some other strategies for the IEP specifically to encourage participation is making it personal. So that basically means like showing parents that you care, that you're really on the side of the child, and trying to make an environment that is successful for their child. One of the biggest things I find is trying to help parents get ready for the IEP. There's a lot of jargon in a IEP that parents are very unfamiliar with, and they get very overwhelmed. So sitting down and maybe with the parents, maybe having a informal meeting with them about maybe what is on the IEP also creates communication and helps them know, so they have better participation in the IEP process. I also think you have to be open and honest about data and information that is shared on the IEP and what it all means in regards to their child. Another thing would be to ask the parents what they want, because sometimes what they want for their child is different from what we perceive or educators perceive. And the fifth one, providing meaningful progress reports. These can be weekly progress reports that have good notes to show paperwork coming home, to show the family that what it was going on inside the classroom, and ask them questions, ask them to participate in those progress reports, what they're seeing at home, leave a little area for them to write notes back and forth to you. All these things increase participation, and it really makes families feel like they're a part of their child's education instead of separate. My next few slides are explanations of 3 different types of derived scores: SISTENE scores, standard scores, and percentile rank scores. I will discuss how they are different and how they tie into each other. One thing that you might want to remember is that all of these scoring systems are considered norm reference scoring scales. That is when you're taking a norm, a group, and comparing it to one individual. Well, excuse me. Here is a percentile ranking. I thought that it would be nice to kind of separate them and see, highlight the different graphs. So with percentile ranking, a student's percentage rank represents the percentage of students with scores equal to, lower than, or higher than the mean. And in this, most times the mean is represented 50%. And anything above 50% is considered above average or well above average. And anything that's kind of below 50% is considered below average and well below average. You can tell in the chart here. And then I'm going to move on to the next one, if I can. Okay, standard scores are often referred to as Z-scores as well. And these scores express a test taker's performance in terms of how many standard divisions their score is from the mean. So the mean is 100, and it's like 1 division or 2 division. It's away from the mean. So you can see it representing here with the +1 or +2, and that here would be, here's the 100, and then this would be +1, this would be +2. Or backwards, -1, -2. And SISTENE score. SISTENE score is a standard score that compares a student's performance on a test to a normal sample using a scale of 1 to 9. This is just a different way to score, a different way to see where a student falls within the norm reference. I did how they work together. This graph here, you can kind of see how it all comes together. It's all that bell curve. It's all norm reference. The percentage ranking divides the score scale into 100 units. A standard division refers to the amount of variation there is from average. And a SISTENE score divides the score